Okay, welcome back. We are going to work on right now just me showing you the basic decade, which would include the 10 Hail Marys and, of course, the Our Father. So remember, we always have our master here to help guide us in our spacing so that we make a good and solid rosary. So I'm just going to have that up here at the top. I'm beginning my rosary, so remember you undo your cord, you match up your two ends together, and then you run your hand down the cord in order to find the middle of your cord, because that's where we begin. Remember, there's lots of ways to do this online. You'll see different ways. There's no right or wrong, but for us, there is a right or wrong because we are trying to make very similar rosaries across the board, and we are trying to make sure that they are something that our military members can take into the field and be able to easily tell where they are in their rosary. Okay, so I found the middle of my cord. Remember, the left side, since we're beginning, will just be off to the side. You can coil that up if you'd like. I'm okay, I've just got it off to the side. So I'm going to take the center of my cord and I'm going to lay it across my tool. Remember, my tool is in my left hand. If you're using the brass tool, you can use the smaller side of the tool. If you're using one of the plastic tools, likely you will have to flip yours and use the larger side. Okay, so we are going to drape it across the top. I'm going to come underneath. I'm going to make my X, that's my first wrap. I make my second wrap, which is to the left of the first wrap. So this is the first wrap, and then I go to the left to make the second wrap. I'm going to hold with my left index finger. I'm going to find the end of my right side cord here that I was wrapping with. Once I find that, I'm going to tuck behind, tuck behind and underneath the wraps. It should come out the front of your tool. If it's coming out this way towards your left hand, you're doing it the wrong direction. So just pull it apart and then start again. So make sure that it's coming out the front. So I just pull that pretty nice and tight there, slide it off. And then to make sure that I keep this in the center of my cord, remember I'm going to place my thumb and index finger of my left hand right next to that knot. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm moving it towards my thumb and index finger so I get the knot exactly in the center of my cord. So I'm pulling with my right hand. I'm kind of pushing on the back end of that knot towards my left thumb. And I'm squeezing, I'm twisting, pulling on the cord in my right hand. And then it will push up against this left nail of my thumb. And then we will have it tightened down. Once you've got it really where it is and you want to just give it an extra little squeeze, I push from both sides to just get that super tight. And there we go. You shouldn't see any spaces between your wraps. Then you know it's as tight as you can get it, okay? So that's what we want it to look like. Remember, I don't need to compare here because there's nothing to really compare to. So the first knot is the only knot that you're not going to be comparing to either your master or your own rosary. Okay, so I'm going to go right ahead to my next knot, which means I'm going to just lay this up really close to the top. I'm going to go across the top underneath. I'm going to make my X, that's my first wrap. To the left of that, I make my second wrap. I hold with my index finger. I find the end of my cord. I tuck behind and underneath. And I pull it out the front. Remember, it's always coming out the front. Your cord is coming out the front. That's probably the biggest mistake people will make when making a barrel knot. They go that way. You want to come out the front. Okay, so I'm going to just slide that off. Remember, I'm going to kind of keep it, we know it's about 1/8 of an inch between our knots. So I'm going to tighten it down a little bit, kind of gauging where that is. And then I'm gonna lay it up against my master. I see that I need to go just a little bit to the right for me. And then when I know where I have it, I kind of brace it on either side with my thumbnails to keep the knot in place as I tighten by pulling this right cord. You should never be pulling on the left side. That's not, that will move your knot in the wrong way, and it can destroy what you've been working on over on the left side, the knots that you make. So always be pulling on the right side, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna gauge again. I'm gonna look at my master. It looks like it's right in line. Do you all see that? It's right in line. Just move that down a little bit. Okay, so now I can go on to the next one. So again, I pull my cord up pretty close to have my knot kind of right off the top, right on the edge of this front part of the crevice, okay? And I just kind of hold it there, cross over the top. I make my X, that's the first wrap. Second wrap goes to the left of that. Find the end of my cord. I tuck it underneath from behind so that it comes out the front. Oops, daisy. Okay. So I tighten it down a little bit. I know it's going to be about 1/8 of an inch, so as I do these, I kind of get a better idea of where it is. But before I fully tighten it down, I'm going to come back to my master. I'm going to lay it up against the third decade of my master. Everything's looking good. I'm just gonna go back in and push from both sides so that the knot doesn't move. And I'm just gonna pull a little bit harder on that. And it's good and tight, and it lines up. Okay? So we're gonna do the fourth one. Remember, you're only pulling from the right-hand side, from the cord on that side, and you're using your fingernails of both your thumbs to kind of line up and push to help tighten this knot down as you pull on the right-hand cord. Okay, so these are looking good. So we're just gonna keep working through this. We're on the 5th one here now. Remember, the Hail Marys are only 2 wraps. We go from behind and underneath. Pull that through. Slide it off. Kind of make sure I'm about 1/8 of an inch away. I tighten it down decently, but I should be able to still move it nicely. So I pull out my master here. I line it up. Looks like I could go just a little bit to the right. There we go. So now, since I have it in the place I want it, I'm gonna push from both sides to keep it in the right spot. If I just start pulling on this, it's gonna actually move this knot sometimes out away from where you just decided was the spot. So using both your thumbnails to, to hold this, push against it yourself, it keeps the knot right where you had just measured it to be. So we do a last check once we're done. Looks a little bit still, maybe just a squeezy to the right. And there we go. Okay, on to the next one. Remember, the way we're making these rosaries, we want them to be really uniformed, like our military, right? They're all the same uniform. They all look the same, right? We want the same idea, and the reason for that is when we're making mass amounts of these, if we aren't all lined up the same and we're not making the same spacing and same tightness of our knots, one, we are going to run out of cord. And since this is all done with one cord, you can't really run out of cord. If you do, you're in trouble and you can't finish your rosary, okay? Second of all, having it nice and evenly spaced out, it makes it very easy for these particular rosaries that are going to be going into the field. So with our military service members, and they may be in a darkness. And so they need to be able to feel their way through their rosary. So they have to be able to distinguish between all the knots and, you know, whether they're on our Father knot or if they're on a Hail Mary knot. And then we just want them to look nice, right? I mean, these are rosaries. This is for our Lord and for Mary. So we want everything to just look really nice. So this is a great way to keep it all uniformed, is having this master and making sure that you're following it. And yeah, it does take more time, but we're not here to rush this process, at least in this ministry. So yeah, so that's just how we're gonna make sure we get it all done nice and neat and uniformed. Okay, so we just keep on going along here, making our barrel knots and checking it up against our master. Remember that after you do the first 3 decades of our rosaries, you will be flipping your cord and working from the other side. And then you will step away from your master briefly, only because you're going to then be lining it up with your own rosary, what the knots you did on the first 3 decades. But until you get those first 3 decades done, you're staying with your master. Then the last 2 decades, you'll compare against your own rosary, lining up your rosary side by side. And then when you get to the centerpiece, you'll go back to measuring against your master again, so that it lines up all the way down to the cross. And then once you get to the cross and you've done the top portion of that, you won't need to use your master anymore. Then you're just finish the cross off on your particular rosary. Okay? Okay, so we're just cruising along here, and if you need to, pause so you can catch up. I just did the 8th knot, so if you're behind, that's okay. Just pause, and you can catch up. Okay, so everything's lining up. Making sure everything's nice and tight, lined up. I believe we are on our 10th Hail Mary. So we will be finishing up the Hail Mary part of our decade. And remember, most people don't realize this, but every decade always contains an Our Father. So it's really 11 beads to a decade, even though a decade is 10. But we have Our Father that starts every decade. So I will show you here in just a moment how to do the Our Father bead. Once we get this all done and tight and tightened up. Okay, so there we go. So we have our 10 Hail Marys. They line up with our master, which is great. Okay, then if you notice on our master, we have a good considerable amount of space here. It's about a 1/2 inch, maybe just a 5/8 of an inch. And then we do 4 wraps for our Father bead, okay? So I'm gonna leave a little more space when I hang this off. So you see I don't have it all the way up like this. I have a little bit more space. I'm gonna hold the cord, wrap around. It's the same knot, only this time I'm gonna wrap 4 times. So I make my X, which is the first wrap. To the left of that, I make the second. To the left of that, I make the third. To the left of that, I make the 4th. Remember, you're always working towards this left hand when you're doing a barrel knot. I find the end of my rope or my cord, and I'm going to tuck underneath. Hopefully you're seeing that well on the camera. So it's the same knot. We're not doing anything different. The only difference is the number of wraps. So I'm going to slide that off. Remember, I'm going to have a considerable amount of distance this time between the last Hail Mary I made there and this Our Father. So I'm going to kind of gauge that. I'm going to get it down to where I think, but I'm not going to tighten it too much until I lay it up against my rosary. And I can see I need to go on mine just a little bit to the left. So I'm going to just nudge him to the left. And I see that's exactly where I want him to be. So I'm going to make sure that as I pull to tighten this, I'm going to keep this left thumb and index finger right on the edge of that knot so it doesn't move too far that way. And then I'm pushing everything in this knot towards that thumb. So it's kind of like my brace. It keeps it exactly where I want it to be. And then I push from behind and I pull on this cord, and you can see I squeeze it. Sometimes I'll rotate it if I need to, if the wraps are not laying down nicely. Okay, and then I just put it up there again to see, and it looks pretty good. So then I am set. So there we are. We have our decade, which is the 10 Hail Marys and an Our Father. Okay. Well, please join us again for one of our other videos so we can help you get through the whole thing. Remember, we have a variety of videos here, and also there'll be some nice videos with showing you some tricks about different things that might pop up as you're making these types of rosaries. So happy rosary making, and God bless.